It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 30, looking at the players of the 2025 Gold Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Panama. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 30 on the players of the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. This episode covers Panama's players. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. Series 21 to 27 dealt with the World Cup 2026 qualifying. Series 21, for example, is covering the Asian region, and we actually did preview the preliminary round there. We were hoping to do more previewing for World Cup 2026, but life got busy for us. Nevertheless, we still have hopes of covering it, but we'll now have to do it mostly through reviews. So the past, present, and future media cast that we produced in the spring of 2024 is still relevant. It outlines the World Cup 2026 qualifying procedure in each region, and we will add a link to that media cast in the show notes. So we'll come back to the World Cup 2026 qualifying, but we'll do that after our current focus, which is the 2025 Gold Cup here, and this episode on Panama's players. We are doing this media cast in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examined the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors, and categorized them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and seemingly off the squad. And we'll go into more details, kind of biographical or career details on the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less detail, perhaps even just the names of players unlikely to get there. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected, probably in early June. And at that time, we'll go back over the list that we create today and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries, surprise selections, and predict starters in part 2. So this episode has 3 sections. Section 1, where we look at some general information on the team. Section 2, where we cover the main candidates in each position. And Section 3, where we summarize and conclude, especially focusing on injuries to keep an eye on. All right, let us begin. And I'm just going to make the graphics a little bigger for our YouTube watchers here. And Section 1, some general information on the team then. Let's begin with the squad and some of the big names who are off the squad. We did call this retirements in the past, but that was a bit restrictive because there is a slight chance of them coming back. The first name is Harold Cummings. He's a central defender and has been with the team since 2010 with 94 caps and 1 goal. He was the captain at some point there, and he is 33 years old, so still a chance of him coming back. He's been involved in Gold Cups or in tournaments for Panama since the Gold Cup in 2011, and was captain of the team during the 2021 Gold Cup. He actually played his last game or appeared last for the team on the bench in August 2003. However, Cummings was called up to replace Annabelle Godoy in the 2024 Gold Cup, but he refused the call up. So 2023 remains his last appearance for the club. That is Harold Cummings. Next, we have Rolando Blackburn. He's a forward. And he's 35 years old now with 56 caps and 12 goals for Panama since 2010 and has been part of Gold Cup since 2013. Both he and Cummings did miss the odd cup. In his case, it was from three tournaments from 2016 to 2018. That's the 2018 World Cup, that Rolando Blackburn was not part of the tournament, but he came back in 2019 and played that and the 2021 Gold Cup. Rolando Blackburn last appeared for Panama in September of 2023. And so, yes, he's probably aged out, and we probably wouldn't expect to see him back. Finally, we have Alberto Quintero. He's a right attacker slash forward, and he is 38 years old with 138 caps and 7 goals since 2007 for the national team, and has been part of tournaments since the 2011 Gold Cup. He also wasn't selected for the World Cup in 2018. He was injured for that, and injured in the final warm-up game, sadly. And Alberto Quintero was part of the Gold Cup in 2023, like Harold Cummings. Rolando Blackburn was not part of that most recent tournament. No, the most recent tournament is the 2024 Copa America, but I'll get on with it. Alberto Quintero last appeared for the national team in March of 2024. And because I brought it up, I'll say that none of these players were part of the 2024 Copa America squad. Okay, let's move along and take a look at the recent games that Panama has played. And so we're actually looking at 30 games since the beginning of the 2023 Gold Cup. So we'll move along swiftly here. That 2023 Gold Cup had 6 games in it. It was in June 2023. They reached the final where they lost to Mexico, and 6 games there. Next, we go to July of 2023, where they had a friendly, but that is an experimentative squad. So some of the B team players, or players who are usually on the bench, even though they're selected, and some recruitment players, that's kind of new players being tried out that really haven't been seen before. So that friendly in July of 2023. Next, we have the 2023-24 Nations League group stage. That is 4 games in September and October. And then the finals of that Nations League, the quarterfinals in November 2023, and then the finals, semi-final, and I believe they reached the 3rd place match there in March 2024. Next, we move on to June of that year, a very busy month for Panama. It began with 2 World Cup 2026 qualifiers as CONCACAF begins its World Cup qualification. 2 games there, but the next 2 won't be played until June of 2025. So just starting out there with 2 games. They had a pre-Copa America friendly in June of 2022. They did play their best players in that, their A team. And then in June also, the 2024 Copa America. So 4 games there for Panama. Only 2 CONCACAF teams passed the group stage. It was Panama and Canada passing the group stage there. And that also in June of 2024. So 6 games in all in that period. No, 7 games. My math was poor there. I feel shame. Next, we have not the 2024-2025 Nations League group stage. While most of CONCACAF was playing that, Panama got a bye because they were in the top 4 in the previous season. So instead, they played a couple of friendlies against other teams that received a bye. So they played USA in the first game. This is in the fall of 2024. They put out their best team against USA there, but in the second game against Canada, it was slightly experimentative with some B team players getting starts there. We move on to the 2024-25 Nations League finals. So again, the quarterfinal in 2024 November, and the final, semi-final and final in March of 2025. They did reach the final there and once again lost to Mexico. And in between those 2, in February of 2025, they had a couple of friendlies. These were recruitment matches, really. Almost all of the players kind of new names, just getting a tryout. Okay, so that is 2 games in February of 2025. That all adds up to 30 games. And we're going to look at the formations that they used in those games, not in great detail, but in a kind of a summary. So in 43% of the games, they used a 3-2-2-2-1 formation. And in 10% of the games, a 3-4-2-1 formation. Both of those are very similar. So basically that formation making up over half of their games. They also used a 5-4-1 formation. That was primarily in tournaments in the Gold Cup in 2023 at the Copa America. So 7 times they used that 5-4-1 formation, or 23% of the time, or a quarter of the time. And then all of those have a 3-man defense there, but they did use other formations with a 4-man defense, but that only adds up to about 25% of the time. So roughly we have a 3-man defense used 75% of the time, 76. If you're precise on the math there. So most of the time we'll be looking at a 3-man central defense with the wingers pushing up, though not in all cases, because the 5-4-1 has a left back and a right back too. We'll talk more about that when we get to the positions. The other kind of pattern to notice here is that a single forward was used in 90% of the games. So Panama almost always going with just 1 man up front. All right, our last order of business here is the upcoming games. So they have, as I mentioned earlier, the World Cup 2026 qualifying games, the second set there in early June, and those will act as warm-up games for the Gold Cup. The first one is on June 7th, and that is away in Belize. And the second is at home to Nicaragua on June 10th. So both of those shortly before the tournament. And that concludes our business here in section 1, and we move on to section 2 to look at the candidates. So we're going to begin with the manager, and that is Thomas Christiansen. This is pretty straightforward here for Panama. Thomas Christiansen has been manager since 2020, so his reign covers this whole period, and that's all there is to say about it. Christian in charge since July 2020, and very successful on top of it, so very unlikely that he would be changed. I'll give a little biographical information on him. He, as I said, manager of Panama since 2020. He was with clubs, Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium and Leeds United in England, as well as a couple of clubs in Cyprus there. In terms of tournaments, he has led Panama through the 2021 and 2023 Gold Cups, as well as the 2024 Copa America. So very successful there, Thomas Christiansen. And in terms of likelihood, we would consider him a definite candidate to continue managing through the Gold Cup here. Okay, let's move on to goalkeepers, and we'll begin just by naming the candidates. So we begin with definite candidate Orlando Mosquera, and the likely candidate Cesar Zamudio, and a possible candidate in veteran Luis Meja, kind of slowly making his way off the team, but still around. And then we have 2 possible but unlikely candidates, and I'll deal with these players at this level kind of as we go, because we're not going to spend much time on them with biographical information. So JD Gunn is the first one, and he has not been selected for the last 3 matches. and didn't start any games for the national team. And we have Eddie Roberts as a possible but unlikely candidate, not selected for the last 15 matches. He did actually start an experimental friendly, did Eddie Roberts, but seems even less likely than JD Gunn here. Okay, and then one player seemingly off the squad, Jose Carrera, last appearing for the team in November of 2023. Sorry, I had to pause to cough there. Okay, let's do some biographical information on the main players here. So Orlando Mosquera is 31 years old and has 35 caps for the national team since 2017. Currently playing for Al Fayha in Saudi Arabia since 2024, and he has been in Israel, Venezuela, Bolivia, and Turkey. So a bit of a world traveler is Orlando Mosquera. He's been around since the 2017 Gold Cup, but always on the bench behind Luis Major there. 2023, he got the start in the 2023 Gold Cup and also in the 2024 Copa America, so he's their leading keeper. Orlando Mosquera, over the recent period, started 13 of their 16 games from the start of 2024 and was on the bench for 2 and not selected for 1. So looking like the likely starter again here, but that is something we'll deal with in part 2 where we predict starters. Next, we have Samudio, Cesar Samudio, and he is also 31 years old. With 4 caps for the national team since 2023, so a bit of a latecomer to the team there. He's currently with Marathon in Honduras since 2023 and played in Panama prior to that. Cesar Samudio was selected for the 2023 Gold Cup and the Copa America in 2024. He was the backup keeper there, didn't see any action in the tournament, and indeed didn't see any action over the recent period. Didn't start any of their 16 games, but he was on the bench for 15 of them. So just one match that Cesar Samudio was not selected for. So we consider him likely to be selected, even though we don't think he'll get a start. The possible candidate is Luis Major, so a veteran, again, only slightly older than the others, actually at 34 years old, but he has 53 caps for Panama since 2009, and he's currently playing in Uruguay, his second stint with Nacional in Uruguay since 2024, and he has also played in Chile and in France. Luis Major, his first tournament was the 2011 Gold Cup. He was a backup keeper there, but became the starting keeper in the 2015 Gold Cup, actually replacing Jamie Pinedo there. No, he just one game there. What am I talking about? Really, he became the starting keeper in the 2019 Gold Cup. And held that starting position until 2023 when Orlando Mosquera took over. Luis Major, though, still around. He was a backup keeper for those last 2 tournaments, and started 2 of their 16 games from the start of 2024. He was on the bench for 7 of them, including the last 2 matches, and not selected for 7 others. So that's why we consider him likely selected for the last 2 matches, and JD Gunn probably squeezed out because Major is still around. So those are the 3 main candidates. We think they'll bring 3 to the Cup. It's possible that they'll bring 4. And we're going to summarize this position in part 2, kind of tell you who's been in and out over the period, but we're saving that for part 2. Because we're just introducing candidates here. So that is goalkeepers. Let's move on to defenders and central defense. So, just a quick comment on the position. As we saw in section one, Panama uses a three-man central defense in 76% of the games in this period. So, we're basically looking at three positions at once here, and we begin with listing the candidates. Jose Cordoba is a definite candidate, and Fidel Escobar, also definite. And so is Edgardo Farina. So three of those definite candidates. We have Carlos Harvey, who is a likely candidate, and Roderick Miller, uh, also a likely candidate, but an injury concern, which we'll talk about later. And then we have some possible candidates, Giovanni Ramos, and Martin Krug, both of those possible candidates. Possible but unlikely, I'll deal with as we go then. Eduardo Anderson actually has been part of the last two tournaments, even though he saw very little action in them. However, Eduardo Anderson not selected for the last 7 matches, so we'll give more details on him if he is chosen for the squad. Possible but unlikely also is Rainiel Perdomo, and he was really just involved in a friendly in February 2025. He came back to play that friendly, which was an experimental match, and wasn't selected for the last 2 matches. So we consider most of the players in those February games as unlikely. Eric Diaz is one of those players, similar situation. Returned to play in those February games, but not called up for March. And then we have Andres Andrade, a bit of an experienced player who has drifted off the squad here, and he at this point seems to be off the squad, having last played in March of 2024. But he was a starter in the 2023 Gold Cup, Andres Andrade. And then the veteran Harold Cummings, also a starter in the 2023 Gold Cup, but off the squad since August 2023 was his last appearance. And we have finally Richard Peralta, also, not finally, but also off the squad, it seems, last appearing in March of 2023. The last one, I promise, is Jan Carlos Vargas, who was last kind of seen. Anyway, he is off the squad. I don't want to go into detail on it. He really hasn't been around that much, but was around enough to get his name on the list here. Okay, let's go back and look at these candidates. It is a intimidatingly long list, but keep in mind that we are kind of covering 3 positions here. So let's take a look at Jose Cordoba. He is 24 years old and has 23 caps for Panama since 2022. And Cordoba plays for Norwich in England, and he was with Levski Sofia in Bulgaria for a couple of years before that, and played mostly in Panama, but a short stint in Spain in his club career. He didn't make the final cut for the 2023 Gold Cup. He was on the preliminary squad, Jose Cordoba, but he's come in a big way since he started all 4 games in the Copa America, and over this period has started 13 of their 16 games since the beginning of 2024, just 3 matches that he was not selected for. So Jose Cordoba, a definite candidate. The second of 3 definite candidates is Fidel Escobar, and he is 30 years old with 84 caps and 3 goals for Panama since 2015, and is currently playing for Saprissa in Costa Rica since 2023. And prior to that, he was with Alcorcón in Spain from 2020 to 2022. He's also played in Mexico and in USA, was actually loaned to Sporting Lisbon in 2016, 2017. In terms of tournaments, Fidel Escobar first appeared in the 2026 Copa America Centenario, where he was on the roster but saw no action. He actually had been selected for the preliminary squad for the 2015 Gold Cup, but didn't make the final cut there. But has been part of every tournament since 2016, except for the 2021 Gold Cup. So he was a starter in the 2018 World Cup, Fidel Escobar. And I lied to you. He also was not selected for the recent Copa America 2024 because he was injured for that. And Fidel Escobar has started only 5 of their 16 games over the recent period from the start of 2024. But that's because he was injured for 7 games. So otherwise, he was on the bench for 2, suspended for 1, and ultimately just 1 match that he wasn't called up for. So Fidel Escobar, a definite candidate here. The third of the definite candidates is Edgar Farina, pretty new to the team. He's just 24 years old. Well, not, sorry, I thought he was younger. He is 24 years old with 12 caps since 2023. For Panama, so fairly new to the team. Edgardo Farina plays for Khimki in Russia since 2024, and he also was loaned to a team in Guatemala. Otherwise, he played in Panama for his whole career. Edgardo Farina was on the preliminary squad for the 2023 Gold Cup, but not selected for the final squad. However, he was a starter in the 2024 Copa America. So kind of like Jose Cordoba has come in a pretty big way here. Farina started 10 of their 16 games over the recent period from the start of 2024. He was on the bench for 3 and not selected for 3 as well. So Edgardo Farina, a definite candidate. Next, we have likely candidate Carlos Harvey. Carlos Harvey is 25 years old with 13 caps and 1 goal for Panama since 2019, and he plays for Minnesota United in the USA since 2024. Actually, he's been in the USA with 3 teams since 2021. And actually technically since 2019 because he was loaned out to LA Galaxy in 2019. Carlos Harvey, not part of any tournament since the since he got his first cap in 2019. In both 2021 and 2023, he was on the preliminary squad, but didn't make the final cut. But finally, he made a tournament in the 2024 Copa America, where he was kind of a B team player there, a bench player, but he did see some action. Carlos Harvey has started 5 of their 16 games over the recent period and subbed in for 4 and on the bench for 4. So just 3 matches that he was not selected for. So bit of a backup player there, Carlos Harvey, but we think him likely to be selected. The other likely player is Roderick Miller, and he's 33 years old with 46 caps and 2 goals for Panama since 2011. And currently playing in Azerbaijan for Turan Tufos, and has also been with a couple of teams in Iraq before that. He's a real traveller, having played in Peru, Kazakhstan, and Portugal, amongst other countries. Roderick Miller's first tournament was the 2013 Gold Cup, and he's been part of most tournaments since. However, he was not selected for the World Cup in 2018. And sorry, I just lost my graphics for a little bit. And he was a starter in their most recent tournament, the Gold Cup or the Copa America 2024. Most of the time, he hasn't been a starter but in the recent tournament he was. And since the beginning of 2024, Roderick Miller has started 7 of their 16 games, on the bench for 4 and injured for the last 3 matches, and not selected for 2 besides. So we'll talk a little bit about that injury in section 3. But at this point, Roderick Miller actually making his way into the squad a bit more firmly than he has been over most of his career. Okay, the first of 2 possible candidates is Giovanni Ramos, and he is 28 years old with 18 caps for Panama since 2020, and he plays in Panama for Independiente, probably their biggest club there. But he has been loaned out to teams in other countries, Alianza Lima in Peru in 2024, most recently. And Giovanni Ramos also, he's been on the team since 2020, but hasn't been selected for a tournament there. In the case of the 2021 and 2023 Gold Cups, he was on the preliminary squad but didn't make the final cut. He was a likely candidate in 2024 for the Copa America, but didn't make the squad because of injury. So Giovanni Ramos doesn't have a tournament under his belt. That, by the way, is why his name is in light grey. If you're looking at the YouTube graphic, light grey means they haven't been involved in a tournament. Giovanni Ramos has started 3 of their 16 games since the start of 2024, and he was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 2. And just like Fidel Escobar, he was injured for 7. And just 2 matches that he was not selected for, but Giovanni Ramos not selected for the last 2 matches, so that kind of bumped him down a notch there. Overall, we put him as a possible candidate. And finally, we have Martin Krug. He is very young, just 19 years old, and he got his first cap in 2024, so 1 cap for him. And he plays with Atletico Levante in Spain since 2025. So Martin Krug got his first cap in June of 2024. Didn't start any of the remaining 12 games, but was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for the last 2 matches. So even though he was not selected for 9 of the 12 matches, being selected for the last 2 kind of bumps up his likelihood, in our opinion. So Martin Krug, a possible candidate. Whew, that is it for all the central defenders. A long section, but as we said, 3 positions we're covering here, and we'll summarize those positions, or we'll summarize the players in those positions in part 2. But here we're just introducing the names. Okay, let's move on to left backs. And once again, I'll just mention a comment on the position. So Panama often uses a 3-man central defense. We saw that in 7 games it's a 5-4-1. So there is a left back and a right back in those positions. But in more than half of the games, it's a 3-2-2-2-1 or a 3-4-2-1. In which case the left and right backs push up to be wingers. They become wingers. And a lot of the times it is the left and right backs who play as wingers, but sometimes a midfielder is brought in to become that winger. So it may be, the position may be taken up by a midfielder. And actually, for that reason, we're going to do something a little odd here, and we're going to introduce a versatile player at this point. One of the most versatile players I've seen. I'm just going to actually type it in here because he's really all over the field. So I wasn't sure what to do with him or how to include him. But here is a good place to introduce him because he does play that winger role. So it is Joel Barcenas, and we do have him as a I have him as a likely candidate. I'm surprised it's not definite, but we'll see why It's not definite. Likely candidate, Joel Barsones. And he really is more of an attacking player, actually. But because they use that uh, uh, right back and left back pushing up to become a winger, he appears in this position. So this is the first of many positions he'll appear in. So let's give a little biographical information on Joel Barsones. His real name is Edgar Joel Barsones, and I have seen him called Edgar Barsones, but it's usually Joel Barsones, so I'll go with that. Joel Barsones is 32 years old with 95 caps and 9 goals for Panama since 2014, and he's currently playing for Mazatlan in Mexico since 2022. And he was with Tijuana in Mexico before that, but has played for clubs in Spain as well. Joel Barsones, first tournament, Copa America Centenario 2016. He was selected for the preliminary squad but didn't make the cut, but has been selected for every tournament since then, including the World Cup in 2018. And Joel Barsones recently has started 12 of their 16 games from the beginning of 2024, but he was not selected for 4 matches, including the last 3. And that is why we bumped him down to likely level. It always leaves a bit of a question mark when players are not selected for the games just before a tournament. Anyway, Edgar Joel Barsones, a likely candidate here, and someone whose name is going to pop up over and over again. Let's move to the left back position, or I should say left back / left winger position here, and look at the candidates. So we begin with Eric Davis, and he is a definite candidate. No, sorry, we have him as a likely candidate. It's a bit surprising, but I'll tell you why. Next, we have Jorge Gutierrez, also a likely candidate. And we have 2 possible candidates, Omar Valencia and Gabriel Brown. I'm just waiting for my graphics to catch up with me here. And we also have Andres Andrade as a left back here, although he played central defense during the early part of this period. But he is seemingly off the squad, Andres Andrade. Let's go back to the top and take a look at these players, beginning with likely candidate Eric Davis. So he's a real veteran with the squad, 34 years old, so getting up there in age. 94 caps and 7 goals since 2010, and currently plays for Vila Nova in Brazil, a small club in Brazil since 2024. But the biggest chunk of his career was with Dunajska Streda in Slovakia from 2015 to 23 there, so playing in Slovakia there. And the first tournament for him was the 2011 Gold Cup, and he's been part of most tournaments, almost all of them, even up to the 2024 Copa America, where he was the captain of the team. And Eric Davies has started 7 of their 16 games since the start of 2024, and he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1. However, he's been injured for the last 7 matches, so that puts a question mark around him, and we'll update that, or we'll get more information on that in section 3. Let's take a look at the second likely candidate. Is Jorge Gutierrez, and he is 27 years old, but just 5 caps for the national team since 2022. He plays for Deportivo La Guaira in Venezuela since 2023. He was actually off the team for a while after his first cap in 2022, and came back after an almost 3-year absence in March of 2025, so just recently, and started both of their remaining games to May of 2025, of course, replacing Eric Davis there. So Jorge Gutierrez, a likely candidate. The first of two possible candidates is Omar Valencia, and he is just 21 years old with 3 caps for Panama since 2022. He plays for New York Red Bulls in USA since 2024 there, and was on loan to them for a bit, but basically in Panama before that. Sorry, I was just correcting something in my files there. Okay. He was actually selected for the 2023 Gold Cup, Omar Valencia, just on the bench there. Actually came in after the group stage to replace Michael Murillo. But didn't see any action there and was just a substitute in one game for the 2024 Copa America. But he was called up for both squads. Omar Valencia has not started any of their 16 games since the start of 2024. But he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 6, including the last 2 matches. Omar Valencia, so not selected for 9 matches and a possible candidate here. The second possible candidate is Gabriel Brown. He's 27 years old, but only 2 caps for Panama since 2023, so a bit of a late comer. He plays for Arabe Unido in Panama since 2017. There, and he had earned a single cap in August of 2023, but then was off the team for 15 months, returning in November 2024 to start one of their remaining 5 games on the bench for 2, but not selected for the last 2 matches. So this is basically these players getting starts because of the injury of Eric Davis, and then kind of looking to find his replacement if he's not going to be in the cup. Okay, that is the left back position, and again we'll summarize the kind of the history over the recent period of the players in the position when we get to part 2. But we're just naming candidates here, so let's go over to the right back position. And we have a definite candidate, a definite candidate in Michael Murillo, but I just said he was injured after the group stage of the 2023 Gold Cup. He's an injury concern going into this one as well, but we'll talk about that in section 3. So Michael Murillo, a definite candidate. Cesar Blackman, also a definite candidate over here. And we have a likely candidate in Ivan Anderson. And those are all the candidates that we have over here. So let's take a look and take a look at these players. So Michael Murillo, another veteran for the squad. By the way, he is sometimes called Amir Murillo. And he is 29 years old and has been with Panama since 2016 with 81 caps and 9 goals. And he has a good club affiliation with Marseille in France since 2023 and Anderlecht in Belgium before that. He also played for the New York Red Bulls. We're seeing quite a few Panama players on that New York Red Bulls team. Michael Murillo's first tournament, though, his first tournament was the 2017 Gold Cup. He actually had just been on the preliminary squad for the 2016 Copa Centenario America, but didn't make the final cut. However, he was a starter in the 2017 Gold Cup and has participated in every tournament, including the World Cup, except for the 2021 Gold Cup, where once again he didn't make the final cut. Okay, Michael Murillo in the recent period have started 10 of their 16 games since the start of 2024, but he was subbed in for 1 and out with 2 separate injuries there. Those were the first 2 games of the period in 2024 and the last 2, and then 1 match that he was not selected for. So Michael Murillo, bit of an injury doubt, but would be a definite candidate. And, I kind of said he didn't make final cut in the Gold Cup in 2021, but he was a starter in the 2023 Gold Cup and the 2024 Copa America. So his loss would be a big one there. The other candidate, though, at the definite level is Cesar Blackman, and he is 27 years old with 30 caps and 2 goals for Panama since 2019. And he also plays in Slovakia. He's with Slovan Bratislava in Slovakia, but he played for the same team, Dunajska Streda in Slovakia from 2017 to 2023. So just like Eric Davis there, they would have been teammates on that team for quite a while. Cesar Blackman, in terms of tournaments, didn't make the cut for the 2019 Gold Cup and was not selected for the 2021 Gold Cup here. That might have been because of an injury. So Cesar Blackman's first tournament then was the 2023 Gold Cup. He was a sub in that tournament, actually came in for game 3, a B team game, and was injured in that game. So just like Michael Murillo was not available for the final games. And in the 2024 Copa America, he started on the bench but gained a starting position. So kind of working his way into the team more and more, Cesar Blackman. And over the recent period, he started 9 of their 16 games, as well as subbing in for 2. And he was on the bench for 4 and just 1 match that he was not selected for. So Cesar Blackman, definite candidate, still not necessarily a starter, but we think he'll definitely be selected. The other candidate is the likely Ivan Anderson, and he is 28 years old with 13 caps and 1 goal since 2019 for Panama, and he plays for Marathon in Honduras. That's a recent move in 2025. He was with Monagas in Venezuela for 3 years before that, although he was loaned out. Ivan Anderson's first tournament was the 2023 Gold Cup. And there he was called in after the group stage to replace Cesar Blackman, who we just saw was injured. Ivan Anderson also selected for the Gold Cup, for the 2024 Copa America there, although he was on the bench for all 4 games. And he doesn't get many starts, Ivan Anderson, just 2 of their 16 games from the beginning of 2024 was he a starter. He also subbed in for 2, but he was on the bench for 9. So just 3 matches that he was not selected for, and is a likely candidate to be selected for the squad. Okay, so once again, we'll summarize who's been playing in the position over the recent period when we get to part 2. But that's it for the defenders, and we move on to the midfield. So really, we should put Joel Barcenes here as a versatile midfielder, but because he replaced, especially on the left side, he became the left winger in a formation with just three central defenders. We introduced him there, but really he's more of an attacking player, so consider him introduced here more as a versatile midfielder, really. But we've talked about him already, so we'll move on to the defensive midfield. Just a quick word about the midfield position. So for Panama in this period, it's 2 defensive midfielders in more than half of the games. If you envision a defensive midfielder as a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-2-2-2-1, where there's 2 lines of midfield. But sometimes it's just 1 line of midfielders, like in a 4-4-2 formation, and that's the case in 30% of the games for Panama. So in that case, it would be central rather than defensive midfielders. But all in all, it doesn't matter that much for Panama, because really it's the same players regardless of the position. So not a big distinction here between defensive and offensive, or defensive and central midfielders. Anyway, we go with the way the players are coded. on our sources, and we only change those codings if we find that they're wrong. So anyway, Adalberto Carrasquilla is a definite candidate as a defensive midfielder. And we also have Annabelle Godoy as a definite candidate here. Likely candidate, Abdiel Ayarza, although he is an injury concern, which we'll talk about in section 3. And then we have possible candidate Edward Cedeno. And then, to my surprise, actually, possible but unlikely Giovanni Welsh. But I'm going to introduce him as a possible candidate because I personally think he might make it back onto the squad. But we'll tell you why we put him at the possible but unlikely when we introduce him. We'll break our rules a bit and introduce him. But let's go back to the more likely candidates. Adalberto Carrasquilla is 27 years old and has 65 caps for the national team and 3 goals since 2018. He's currently with UNAM Pumas in Mexico since 2025 and was with Houston Dynamo in the USA and Cartagena in Spain prior to that. He actually wasn't that big a name for Panama. He's become a bigger name with great performances over the last few cups. But in the 2018 World Cup, he was on the preliminary squad but didn't make the final cut. And then in 2019 Gold Cup, not even chosen for the 40-man preliminary squad. So his first tournament was in the 2021 Gold Cup, but he was a starter by that time and has been so for the 2023 Gold Cup and 2024 Copa America. Just a tremendous performance, especially in the 2023 Gold Cup there. And Adalberto Carrasquilla has started 10 of their 16 games from the start of 2024, as well as subbing in for 2. And he was suspended for 2, actually, a red card in the Copa America there, and not selected for 2 matches. But a definite candidate, Adalberto Carrasquilla. Next, we have Annabelle Godoy, a real veteran for the team, but getting up there in age, 35 years old. He has 147 caps and 4 goals since 2010. He's currently with San Diego FC in USA. And Annabelle Godoy has been playing with American teams for quite a while, Nashville and San Jose. There, but he did actually play in Hungary from 2013 to 15. Annabelle Godoy has been part of tournaments since the 2011 Gold Cup there, and has been part of tournaments, yes, ever since. But there was a period from 2019 that he was injured. So he missed 2 Gold Cups in 2019 and 2021. And then again, at the last minute, got injured for the 2024 Copa America. So really only just 1 tournament since the 2018 World Cup. That was the 2023 Gold Cup where he was the captain and he did start, he was a starter there. Annabelle Godoy has started 8 of their 16 games since the start of 2024. He was subbed in for 3, injured for 4, and then 1 match not selected. So Annabelle Godoy still going pretty strong here and a definite candidate for this cup. Likely candidate, not taking into account the injury concern, is Abdiel Ayarza. Abdiel Ayarza is 33 years old with 33 caps and 4 goals for the national team since 2019. His first tournament was the 2021 Gold Cup. He had been on the preliminary squad for the 2019 Gold Cup but didn't make the final cut. And he was just a sub there in the 2021 Gold Cup, playing in Game 3, which was a B team game. He was subbed out at halftime there. He didn't make the final cut for the 2023 Gold Cup and was a sub again in the Copa America. So doesn't get many starts, Abdi Ayarza. In fact, only started one of their 16 games over the recent period, but he did sub in for 8 and was on the bench for 1. He was only not selected for 1 match because he was injured for the last 5 matches. And we'll talk about that more in section 2. But otherwise, he would be a likely candidate here. And then we have possible candidate Edward Cedeno, and he is 22 years old. No caps for Panama, actually, but first appeared on the bench recently in March 2025 and was on the bench for both of those games in March. So we have to put him as a possible candidate here. He plays for Potros del Este in Panama, not one of the biggest teams there, but has been with them since 2021. So Edward Cedeno, a possible candidate, but possible but unlikely Giovanni Welsh will introduce. He is 26 years old with 20 caps and 1 goal for Panama since 2022. He plays for Alianza in Panama, or is at least on their roster because he's been loaned out to Millonarios in Colombia and also to a team in Portugal. And to one in Venezuela as well, Giovanni Welsh. And he was selected for the last 2 tournaments, just as started as a substitute, but actually gained a starting position in the 2024 Copa America. This is why I think he may make a comeback. But his recent history is that he started 3 of their 16 games since the beginning of 2024. He was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 1, but he wasn't selected for 9 matches, including the last 7 matches. So despite gaining a starting position in the summer of 2024, basically hasn't been called up much since then, which is a bit surprising because I thought he was kind of making his way into the team. And personally, I wouldn't be surprised if he is selected for the squad. Okay, let us go to central midfielders. We actually surprisingly don't have many candidates here. And in fact, the first name we have is coded as a right midfielder, but we moved him here because he's been playing more centrally. That's Christian Martinez or Christian Jesus Martinez. And I'll just finish the comment on his position there. He did line up twice as a right attacking winger. So maybe he is a right midfielder in a sense. But he fits better here. We only have one other candidate besides, and that is Martin Moran. And he is seemingly off the squad. So last appeared for the national team in March 2023. So we won't give information on him unless he comes back into the squad, and we'll do that in part 2. So let's take a look at the only candidate really here is Christian Martinez. He's 28 years old and has 52 caps and 1 goal for Panama since 2016. A very long resume of clubs. He moves around a lot. He's actually back in Panama now in his second stint with Plaza Amador since 2023. But even now, he's out on loan to a club in Israel. And he's played in various countries. I won't go through the details, but he generally moves fairly quickly, spending about a year or 2 with most of his clubs. Christian Martinez, despite being on the team since 2016, did not make a tournament until the 2023 Gold Cup. And he was just a B team player or a bench player, getting a start only in their B team game 3, where they fielded a B team. But in the Copa America 2024, he was a starter and does seem to be becoming more of an influential player for Panama, because over the recent period, Christian Martinez started 11 of their 16 games since the beginning of 2024, as well as subbing in for 4. So just 1 match he was not selected for, and he's a definite candidate a definite candidate here. Again, we'll summarize the what the midfield looks like when we get to part two, or look like over this period. But in terms of introducing players, we're going to move on. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about left and right midfielders. But most of the candidates who are here, we kind of moved out because A, they don't use this position much, and B, I can't remember what B was. Anyway, the position is really only used in a 4-3-3 formation. And Panama used that formation 3 times. But really, in both cases, it's out of position players, not really specific left or right midfielders. In fact, Christian Martinez didn't play in this position, even when they did use that formation. In 2 of those, it was a right back who came in to accompany the defensive midfielders who are usually there. So really, no need to be specific about this position. My lips aren't working well. Anyway, we do have a candidate at the, we do have Eduardo Guerrero, who is coded as a left midfielder, but we're moving him to a forward because that's the only position he started in during this period, Eduardo Guerrero. The one candidate we will put on the list is possible but unlikely Jose Murillo. And he started both of those games there in February, but they were just experimental friendlies. But he has been around longer, Jose Murillo, but we won't go into detail on him because he's an unlikely candidate here. Okay, let's go to the right side, and kind of a similar situation. We have Christian Martinez, but we moved him to central midfield and just talked about him. We'll keep Cesar Yanis here because he only started 1 game, so we're not really sure what his true position was. But possible candidate Cesar Yanis, and then we have possible but unlikely Irving Gudino. And I'll dispense with him here. He was just part of the, subbed in for a friendly, was his only on-field participation. He came back from an 18-month absence, subbing in for one of those experimental friendlies, and then not considered in March. So Irving Gudino, unlikely there. We also have Victor Medina, and last appeared for the national team in June of 2023, so he seems to be off the squad, as does Darwin Pinzon. Darwin Pinzon last appeared for the team in August of 2023. So again, we'll talk more about those players if they are selected for the final squad. But players at the possible level or above, we do introduce. So Cesar Yanis has a lot of experience with Panama, 50 caps and 4 goals since 2020 for Cesar Yanis. He's 29 years old and plays for San Carlos in Costa Rica since 2023, although he is on loan to Cobresal in Peru since 2025. Cesar Yanis was part of the squad for the 2021 Gold Cup, and has been part of every tournament since then. Even though he's basically a bench player, he did actually move into a starting position in the 2021 Gold Cup, but in other tournaments, a bench player. And over the recent period, Cesar Yanis started 1 of their 16 games from the beginning of 2024. He was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 6, though. But there were 6 matches he was not selected for, and that includes the last 2 matches. So Cesar Yanis, certainly not a starter here, but a possible candidate for selection. Okay, that is left and right midfielders. So we move on upfield to the attacking part of the field, and we begin with left side attackers. So just a bit about the position. We've kind of created this category for ourselves here at Soccerphiles. We've come to see this and the right attacking position as dependent on the formation. So it'll either be one of three positions, either an attacking winger in a 4-4-2 formation, an attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or a left forward in a 4-3-3 formation. And what we found after doing a lot of these media casts is that it's often the same player covering those positions. And so we've created a category that kind of covers them all. So left attackers, let's look at the candidates. We begin with Jose Luis Rodriguez, and he actually can be found on both sides usually. So we've recoded him just as a winger rather than a left or right winger. And it's actually the sources that we use that code them as wingers. So Jose Luis Rodriguez, a definite candidate. Ismael Diaz, we jumped down actually to possible, but we have quite a few at the possible level. So Ismael Diaz is the first. Then we have Freddy Gondola, and we have Cahiser Lenis, and Jan Paul Morales, all of those possible candidates. Then we have possible but unlikely Ricardo Phillips and Christian Quintero, seemingly off the squad. So I'll just deal with those two. Ricardo Phillips not selected for the last 5 matches and didn't start any during the period, so possible but unlikely there. And Christian Quintero last appearing for the national team in August of 2023, so seemingly off the squad. Let's go back and look at the more viable candidates here, beginning with Jose Luis Rodriguez. So as I said, we'll see him on this side, on the left and on the right. Here, Jose Luis Rodriguez is 27 years old with 55 caps and 7 goals for Panama since 2018. And he is currently on the books of Red Star Belgrade in Serbia since 2024, but actually has been loaned to Juarez since 2024, Juarez in Mexico. He's also played in Portugal and Spain. In fact, he's been abroad for most of his career ever since 2016 when he joined a team in Belgium. Jose Luis Rodriguez, in terms of tournaments, his first tournament was the World Cup in 2018, and he was a starter in that tournament. But he wasn't a starter in the 2019 Gold Cup there. So kind of on and off a bit with the team. In fact, was not part of the 2023 Gold Cup squad. But that was due to injury. It was also an injury which ended his 2024 Copa America 84 minutes into game 1. So struggling with injuries over the past couple of tournaments. But Jose Luis Rodriguez is starting more nowadays with 9 of their 16 games he was started, or that he started, and he was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 1. Injured for 3 matches there. That's that Copa America injury, and not selected only for 1 match. So a definite candidate, Jose Luis Rodriguez. No candidates at the likely level, so we jump down to the first of 4 possible candidates, Ismael Diaz, and he's 28 years old with 44 caps and 9 goals since 2014. And he's currently playing for Universidad Católica in Chile since 2022. And he has played for teams in Portugal and Uruguay as well. Actually was with Porto B in Portugal from 2015 to 17. Ismael Diaz was actually selected for the 2016 Copa America Centenario, but he withdrew and He was a shock selection actually for that, but he withdrew. So his first tournament was the 2017 Gold Cup. He was kind of a kind of a peripheral player. He was selected for the World Cup in 2018, Ismail Diaz, but then didn't make the two Gold Cups after that. So came back for the 2023 Gold Cup, where he made a huge impression, scoring a hat trick in 9 minutes uh, in that tournament. And but has kind of drifted off a bit since. He wasn't a starter in the 2024 Copa America, although he was selected for the squad. In fact, he's only started 3 of their 16 games, Ismail Diaz, from the start of 2024, but he has subbed in for 4 and was on the bench for 4, injured for 2, and just 3 matches that he was not selected for. So almost a likely selection, I would say, here, but we do have him at the possible level. But he's definitely a stronger candidate than the 3 players below him. The first is Freddie Gondola. Freddie Gondola is 30 years old with 24 caps and 1 goal for Panama since 2021. And he plays for Aktobe in Kazakhstan and was with the team in Israel before that. So he's moved around quite a bit since leaving. He was with a youth club in Costa Rica. I don't think he was born in Costa Rica, but the only team he's played for in Panama was Toro for 1 year. Freddie Gondola had his first tournament in the 2023 Gold Cup, also selected for the 2024 Copa America, a kind of a substitute in both of those tournaments, and was actually off the team before the 2024 Copa America. So in between those 2 tournaments, Freddie Gondola returned after an 11-month absence in June of 2024. And started just 1 of their remaining 14 games since that time. But he was subbed in for 6 and on the bench for 2. But he was not selected for the last 5 matches, making him almost an unlikely candidate here. And I might move him on the list after we look at the next players. The third of 4 possible candidates is Kahisa Lennis, and he is 25 years old with 10 caps and 2 goals since 2023 for Panama. And he plays for Jaguar de Cordoba in Colombia since 2023 after leaving Panama. And Kahisa Lennis was selected for the 2024 Copa America, just a substitute in that tournament. He has since started 2 of their 16 games since the beginning of 2024, but he was subbed in for 6 and on the bench for 3. Because he was away with the under-23 team for 3 games, we can say that there were just 2 matches that Kahisa Lennis was not selected for. However, those were the last 2 matches. So, yes, he does look a bit more likely than Freddie Gondola at this point. Let's look at the last of the possible candidates, Jean-Paul Morales. He is 27 years old, but very new to the team since 2025, in fact, with 3 caps and no goals. He plays for Macara in Ecuador since 2022 and was with a different team in Ecuador, the excellently named Kumbaya in Ecuador for 2 years before that. Jean-Paul Morales then got his first appearance on the bench in November of 2024, and he started 1 of their remaining 5 games, as well as subbing in for 2 and being on the bench for 2 others. So in terms of recent participation, in terms of long-term participation, we have the order right, but in terms of recent participation, we would reverse it and say Morales, then Lennis, then Gondola. We'll leave things the way they are for the time being, but no, I'm actually going to switch them because we do value recent participation in terms of judging their likelihood over long-term participation. So there we have reversed it. But that's it for left attackers. We move on to the right side of the field. right attackers, and we're moving the forward Jose Vallardo over here, really just because right attacking position comes before forward, and we want to introduce him kind of for both. But really, he plays equally in both over this period, more as a right attacker in the first half of the period than going back to being a forward in the second half. But we'll introduce him here. He's a definite candidate. Well, we have Alberto Quintero over here, but he's basically off the team. We moved him though to the forward line because that's the only time he played, the only position he played in this period. So we really only have one other candidate, and that's at the seemingly off the squad level. That is Jorge Serrano, and he last appeared for the team in June of 2023, so seems to be off the squad. So let's go back to the only candidate we have over here. But we should say, though, that Jose Luis Rodriguez, who we introduced as a left attacker, and the very versatile Joel Barcenas, who plays all over the field, but here as well. Both of those could be on the list here. So, but we'd introduced those two before. Okay, let's look at Jose Vallardo, and he is 32 years old now, 58 caps and 15 goals for Panama since 2011. And he also plays for Universidad Católica in Chile. We saw one player shortly before with that team. He's been there, Vallardo, since 2025. So just new to the team, and he was with well, he's been with teams in USA and Peru and Ecuador as well. So Jose Vallardo getting around in his club history there. He was on the preliminary squad for the World Cup in 2018, but didn't make the final cup, but has come into the team since then, making every tournament since then, and usually as a starter. The 2021 Gold Cup was the only tournament where he didn't, where he wasn't a starter. Jose Vallardo has started 10 of their 16 games over the recent period, as well as subbing in for 5. So just one match that he was not selected for. So Jose Vallardo, a definite candidate here. Okay, and then we go to the central attacking part of the field, the central attacking midfielders. Really, actually, not much to talk about here. Panama rarely uses a formation that has this position. Only once have they used a 4-2-3-1, which is a classic central attacking midfielder formation. Other formations like a 4-4-2 may have a central attacking midfielder, but in fact for Panama, it was the defensive and central midfielders playing there. So really the position is not used. And in fact, the only time they used it, it was the ubiquitous Joel Barcenas playing there. So Joel Barcenas all over the field. I'm waiting for him to be in the as a goalkeeper for one game. Okay, but we do have two candidates to mention who are coded as attacking midfielders, both of them seemingly off the squad. So we'll make short work of it here. And we begin with Uziel Maltez. And he first and only appearance was as a substitute in March 2023. So well and truly off the team. Actually, we'll put the other candidate, Angel Aurelian, ahead of him because he does have a bit more history with the national team. Angel Aurelian has 3 caps. He was with the team since 2018, but last appeared in September of 2023 and never did make a tournament. So both of those players really not viable candidates at all. Okay, that brings us to the end of midfielders, and that will be an interesting section to cover in section 2 when we talk about the players who have populated these positions, because it's not that obvious from the simple introduction of players, but we are saving those summaries for part 2 and sticking to our task of introducing players here. And for secondary strikers, we do have a player coded as one, even though they haven't used a formation that requires a secondary striker. But we do have a candidate at the possible level, and it is Thomas Rodriguez. So Thomas Rodriguez is 24 years old, just 4 caps for Panama since 2022, and has not made a tournament there. But he did return after a 16-month absence in October 2024. Didn't start any games, but was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 5. So just one of their 7 recent matches that he was not selected for. So we have to put Thomas Rodriguez as a possible candidate here. Okay, we go on though to the forward position, and I'll repeat what we said in section 1 in terms of the position, and that is Panama uses a single forward in 90% of their games. So just a couple of times we see a formation with 2 forwards, and there we have it. So we should mention here Jose Fajardo again. He's a definite candidate, but we covered him as a right attacker. So let's move on to the next candidate. That's at the likely level, and it's Eduardo Guerrero. We did meet him earlier because he's coded as a left midfielder, but probably should be recoded because he was only a forward in this period. We have a possible candidate in Cecilio Waterman, as I just go through the names before looking at the players. And then we have a possible but unlikely candidate in Everardo Rose. And then we have Alberto Quintero, who actually did play during this period, but is seemingly off the squad now because he last appeared in March of 2024. So we talked about Panama losing that veteran in section 1, as well as this veteran, Rolando Blackburn, also seemingly off the squad, having last appeared in September 2023. And we have 2 more players at this level. Azarias Londono last appeared in the 2023 Gold Cup. And then Alfredo Stevens, a very interesting history to this player, but we won't go into it. Alfredo Stevens last appeared in March of 2024. So there is really an outside chance of some of these players coming back, but we'll only introduce them if they're named to the final squad. Let's introduce these players, the more likely ones though. So Edward Guerrero, at the likely level here. He is 25 years old and has been with Panama since 2017, but only has 8 caps for them and no goals. So Eduardo Guerrero plays for Dynamo Kiev in the Ukraine since 2024, and has spent time in both Ukraine and quite a bit of time in Israel as well, Eduardo Guerrero. But in terms of tournaments, though he's been around since 2017, has not made a tournament until the 2024 Copa America there. Eduardo Guerrero. And so over the recent period, he started 3 of their 16 games and was subbed in for 6 and on the bench for 2 and not selected for 5 others. That includes the last 3 matches. So kind of finally getting his foot into the team, or so it seems, but then recent participation adding a question mark. And we will have to look at his position there because he seems miscoded as a left midfielder. All right, the possible candidate is Cecilio Waterman, and he is 34 years old and has been with Panama since 2010, with 43 caps and 12 goals. So his first tournament was the 2013 Gold Cup, where he was a starter in the tournament, but he was off the team for 6 years after that. And so the next real consideration for him was the 2021 Gold Cup, where he was actually selected for the final squad, Cecilio Waterman, but he got a positive COVID test before the tournament, was replaced by Orlando Blackburn. So his next tournament then was 10 years after his first, the 2023 Gold Cup. But he wasn't selected for the 2024 Copa America due to injury. Over the recent period, Cecilio Waterman has started 4 of their 16 games. He was also subbed in for 2, but he was out with 2 consecutive injuries for 8 matches and not selected for 2 others. So actually, I think Cecilio Waterman, especially given the lack of candidates here, has a decent chance of making it. We are seeing kind of some out of position players playing as a forward, so it looks like they need them. One of those out of position players, unsurprisingly, the ubiquitous Joel Barcenero. Joel Barcenes, his name was eluding me there. So again, I wouldn't be surprised to see him, or even some of the less likely candidates, brought back. There's a bit of a lack of players for this position, and you'll see when we get to part 2 and summarize the position what's going on there. Anyway, that is it for our look at candidates. And again, when we get to part 2, we'll go through them and see who made it and who didn't. I should actually just say here, though, we do have a list of players who are only on the their only appearance was the experimental game in February of 2025. We didn't want to introduce them here because their likelihood is quite low, but we do have them on our list, and we will introduce them if they are selected for the final squad. That's about I'd say 12 players that we have there. Okay, but that is it for part 1. For section 2, our introduction of the players. Let's move on to section 3. And we're going to begin with a review of candidates, but I want to say hello to the people just dropping in for the short version here. We're releasing a short version, and it's just made up of section 3 here. In the full version, though, I'm speaking to those people just joining. We did introduce the candidates and their likelihood of making the final squad. We also gave biographical information on the more likely players to make the squad. For those just listening to the short version here, if you want all of those details, you can go to the full version, and that will also give the reasons for our predictions here as well. For those who have listened to sections 1 and 2, this will act as a review. But just before we begin, I want to say we're not concerning ourselves with predicting starters at this point, but we will do that in part 2 of this video. So here we are back at the top, and we have manager Thomas Christiansen. He would be a definite candidate. He's been very successful and with the team for quite a while. So definite manager Thomas Christiansen. For goalkeepers at the definite level, we have Orlando Mosquera. At the likely level, Cesar Samudio. And at the possible level, Luis Mejia. I won't review the possible but unlikely or seemingly off the squad players unless it's significant. But those 3 players probably will be the ones. Moving on to defenders, well, Panama uses a 3-man defense in about 3/4 of their games. And so we have a lot of candidates here. 3 definite candidates: Jose Cordoba, Fidel Escobar, and Edgardo Farina. Then 2 likely candidates in Carlos Harvey and Roderick Miller, and then 2 possible candidates in Giovanni Ramos and Martin Krug. And we also kind of waved farewell to some veterans here, Harold Cummings in particular, seemingly off the squad now. Okay, let's move on to the left back position. Well, we did throw in versatile player Joel Barcenas, or Edgar Joel Barcenas here. He appears all over the field. That'll become more apparent in part two, but we wanted to introduce him here because he even is replacing defenders, even though he's more of an attacking player. So Joel Barcenas, we have him here at the likely level. Just because he missed a few of the last games, but he's probably a definite candidate. For left back, also probably a definite candidate, Eric Davis, but for a couple of reasons, we put him at the likely level, Eric Davis, and then Jorge Gutierrez at the likely level for left back, and then two possible candidates, Omar Valencia and Gabriel Brown. Over in the right back position, we have a definite candidate in Michael Murillo and also in Caesar Blackman, and then a likely candidate in Ivan Anderson. Some of these players are under an injury risk, which we'll deal with after this section. Okay, moving on to the midfield, we start with defensive midfielders, and we have a definite candidate in Adalberto Carrasquilla and also Annabel Godoy. Then we have a likely candidate in Abdiel Ayarza and a possible candidate in Edward Cedeno. And I will mention possible but unlikely candidate Giovanni Welsh, because I personally think he's going to be coming back into the squad. Okay, I may be wrong though. Central midfielders, just one candidate at the definite level, Christian Martinez. He's actually coded as a right midfielder, but we moved him here because he's played here more, and he is at the definite level. So really not a lot of candidates for defensive and central midfielders, but that's a sign of the squad stability. We did look at left and right midfielders. We moved a couple of them out, but really they don't use this position much, or if they do, it's defensive and central midfielders there. So no one at the definite or likely level, just one candidate at the possible level, Cesar Yanis. And yes, we move on upfield to attacking midfielders, and we begin with the left side attackers. Jose Luis Rodriguez really plays both sides. He's a definite candidate. We have no candidates at the possible level, at the likely level, but four at the possible level: Ismael Diaz, Jean-Paul Morales, Cahizer Lenis, and Freddy Gondola. All four of those possible candidates. And then on the right side, we have moved forward Jose Fajardo. Here, he's a definite candidate and has actually played right attacker for about half of the recent period and forward for half of the recent period, but we wanted to introduce him here. And we also have Jose Luis Rodriguez and Joel Barcenas sometimes playing as the right attacker. Central attacking midfielders, they don't use the position much, and we have no candidates at the possible level or above. So we move on to the forward line. We do have one secondary striker or player coded as a secondary striker, even though Panama doesn't use the position. The player is Thomas Rodriguez, coming in at the end there and looking like he might make the squad. For forwards, we have no one listed at the definite level, but we would put Jose Fajardo here as well. He's the most likely forward. We have a likely candidate in Eduardo Guerrero and a possible candidate in Cecilio Waterman. But off the squad are some big names for them, Alberto Quintero and Rolando Blackburn, both of those seemingly off the squad. All right, that is the end of our review of candidates. Now let's talk about injuries. And we begin with central defender Roderick Miller. So he is out he was out with a knee problem from mid-January to early May. But good news, he was back playing on May 10th. That's just about a week before we do this podcast. So just back in the picture recently. So they will be happy to have him available to them. We also have Michael Murillo. So Michael Murillo was out with hamstring injuries for the March International, but actually only out for 2 games with his club. His club is Marseille in France. So it all had the ring of being a manufactured injury, so that Marseille could avoid sending him off to international games. He was injured for the 2 club games before the international break, and then benched for the only time of the season in the game afterwards, and was back playing in early April. But all in all, it's good news. Even if it was a bit manufactured, Michael Murillo is recovered from his injury. He is sometimes called Amir Murillo, by the way. Okay, next we have Abdiel Ayarza, the defensive midfielder. He's listed at the likely level, and I should have said that Roderick Miller was a likely candidate and Michael Murillo a definite candidate. Abdiel Ayarza is a likely candidate at the defensive midfield, and he was out with a tear of his lateral meniscus, which is the knee region, around the knee, and he was out from at least mid-October all the way to the present. Actually, we don't have club information for Abdiel Ayarza. He plays in Bolivia, so no club information. But on his international page, he is still listed as injured with an unknown return date. But because he's been out for quite a while, we're going to say he's a close call, and we'll update that in part 2. Next, we have a definite candidate, Eric Davis, their left back, their long-serving left back. He also has a knee injury, and he's been out since mid-October. Also for him, we have no club information. He plays for a small club in Brazil. But even in May, on his international page, he is listed as injured with an unknown return date. So Eric Davis, captain of the team for the 2024 Copa America there, injured, and we don't know. So again, hopefully we'll have more information when we do part 2. Okay, well, those are the injury concerns for Panama, and let's move on to the closing thoughts section. So what I want to say about Panama is an extremely stable squad. We've seen the manager has been there since 2020, so no changes in managers. You'll see, especially in part 2, where we summarize the position, that it's been the same veterans in the same spots without many changes. And very successful over the past little while. So they will have to start replacing some of those veterans in time fairly quickly for some of them. But for now, it just looks like such a stable, strong squad who've been playing together for a while. So Panama looking good coming into this tournament. Okay, and now we will move to preview part 2. So in part 2, we will go through the list that we made here and tell you who made it and who didn't. One of the features of part 2 will be predicting the starters, but we will review who's selected, and we'll emphasize any notable non-selections, any surprise inclusions or new players, and of course we'll also update those injuries. So that brings us to the end of our look at Panama. I'm just going to go back to the visual page here and end on that note. So I hope we see you for part 2. We would like to thank Future Bass for the wonderful music you hear in this podcast. The title is called Alone.